Good evening, Internet. The brackets are out. The pens, I don't know if pens get hot, but welcome to SB Nation Selection Sunday Bracket Breakdown Special. My name is Dan Rubenstein. Beside me, as always, Nick Fasulo, our guest expert. How are you doing tonight? How are you feeling?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
Of
I know
course.
you're tired.
I am a little bit tired. I'm excited, though. We've got a bracket to fill out. We've got analysis. We've got coaches that are going to be on the horn. We've got writers breaking things down for their teams. We're going to go region by region by region by region and tell you just how Kentucky's going to win it all.
That's pretty much what it's going to happen.
That's what we're going to do.
We're going to talk a lot of fluff, and then we'll just say Kentucky to the finals, and it's over.
Kentucky
we can just
wins!
go home.
Yay! We could just talk about our favorite tacos. We could just go through and talk about tacos and be like, yeah, Kentucky's going to win.
Cool.
But instead, we're going to actually talk about basketball. So to you, now that you've seen everything, who got left out, who's in, the matchups, the play-ins, to you, what are the big stories right from the top?
Every year, they're like, weak bubble. This bubble sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it was a weak bubble. The teams that got left out didn't really have a case to be in.
Right.
But Texas and Indiana are in with space to spare. They were 10, 11 seeds.
Yes.
I think both those teams played terrible at the end.
Talented, but yes, inconsistent up and down.
I was shocked that they just got in comfortably.
Right.
Especially Texas, because I think they had a sub 500 league record.
Yep.
Tailspin at the end of the season. Louisville's overseeded. This is a different team than what it was beginning of the year. They haven't played that great. They did get that Virginia win.
Yes.
So that probably saved them
without
from being,
Justin Anderson, but yes, a very nice chip.
So those three teams, I was kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
The committee, if you look at the bracket, really likes the Big 12.
Yes.
They got, I think, 3 or 4 teams that are 3 seed or above. West Virginia's a 5 seed.
A conference that we couldn't make, at the top, we couldn't make out who exactly was separating themselves at any given time.
It's always was the best conference this year.
Right.
And it definitely showed, and the committee valued that when they announced the field. So that wasn't too surprising, but when you see that, you're like, okay, this was definitely the top tournament or top conference in the league. I think, remember last year, there was the region of death, and there were like 10 teams that were amazing, and it was really scary and all that stuff. I don't see that this year.
It seems much more balanced. It seems much more even. To you, when you look at the matchup specifically, whether it's 5-12, whether it's 15-2, whatever it is, what are you excited for on a pure basketball level for week one?
On a pure basketball standpoint, I'm excited that I see probably 3 or 4 5, 12, 14-3 games. We always talk about
it. 5-12s, but they are nice matchups.
The committee knows. They go, look, we're going to put Eastern Washington, who can shoot, against Georgetown, who has a tendency to not defend the three-point shot.
And just not get past the first weekend. Yeah, absolutely.
I think Gonzaga and Duke have a pretty easy path to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
I think there's the other region above that. I think it's the South, where Villanova is. That is another weak weak region. Kentucky will call it the region of death because
everybody dies.
You die when you play
Kentucky.
But it's pretty balanced this year.
It is nice and balanced. I think we feel great about Lafayette moving forward into the Final Four. Patriot League, everybody, get on board.
100% white boys.
All right, where are we going to now? I believe we're going to keep talking about Ricky O'Donnell. We're going to keep talking about the college basketball NCAA bracket right now. Ricky, to you, what was the big story coming in? Obviously, a lot of people reacting to UCLA and whether they deserved it, but it doesn't feel like a big controversy here, does it?
I think the one thing that jumps out to me is that the West bracket is just stacked. Having a potential Wisconsin versus Arizona matchup.
True.
They're in the Elite Eight. That'd be a really great game in the Elite Eight. I think that both of those teams would have been squads I would have pegged to the Final Four should they have been in other regions. So to have that in the Elite Eight and then the winner playing Kentucky in Kentucky's first game of the Final Four, that would be really incredible.
When you look at the bracket itself and how teams come into the tournament after conference tournament play, who to you is playing at a high enough level to match up against Kentucky in an actual meaningful way?
It's tough just because Kentucky's got the size that is just the trump card over everyone.
Right.
I do think that Arizona would be a great matchup for Kentucky should it happen in the Final Four. And if you're going to choose, if you don't want to choose Kentucky in your bracket, I think that the way Arizona ran through the Pac-12, they really look like a team that, could be the pick if you're going to go with someone other than Kentucky. They have, another guy who's expected to be a one-and-done freshman in the NBA draft, Stanley Johnson, who's been terrific this year. They have a great front line. They have solid guard play with T.J. McConnell leading the show. So I think that Arizona's a team that potentially could match up well with Kentucky if anyone can match up well with Kentucky.
Obviously, Kentucky is the huge buzzsaw in this tournament. When you look at the teams perhaps seeded, double-digit seeds, who are the smaller buzzsaws that can win 2 or 3 games with a 10, 11, 12, 13 seed and make their way perhaps to the Sweet 16?
It's a good question. Looking at the bracket really quick, one team that I like from the time conference play got going is Davidson. Davidson's a 10 seed. They have Iowa in their first game in the South region. Then they played Gonzaga. Now, Gonzaga's been really good throughout the entire year, but the way Davidson shoots three-pointers, that could give Gonzaga some trouble. So I think that's a double-digit seed that could potentially do some damage in the first round.
All right, beyond winning and losing, what are names that you are just excited to see? Perhaps not, the Wooden Award candidates, but guys that you are excited to see on this big of a stage, perhaps not from huge schools, even from huge schools. There are guys that are top 10 guys in the country or playing for top 10 teams that are going to make bigger names for themselves. So from a pure basketball level name-wise, who are you excited for?
Yeah, my favorite player to watch throughout the year might be Chris Dunn, who's the Providence point guard. He headed into college as a top 15 overall recruit, but he had 2 season-ending shoulder injuries. He came out really strong in Big East play, and he's just a terror on offense and defense. He's a dude who's really rising up NBA draft boards recently, and when you watch him play, you can tell why almost immediately. Another point guard who I like is DeLon Wright out of Utah. That's Terrell Wright's little brother, the NBA player. DeLon Wright he's similar to Dunn in the sense that he impacts the game on both ends of the floor.
Yep.
He's a terrific athlete. He's not a great shooter, but Utah has some other guys who can knock down perimeter shots, and I kind of like the look of Utah, even though that Stephen F. Austin game in the first round, that's definitely a trap game in a 5-12 matchup, but I think that Wright could be a guy who could really become a star, should Utah be able to get past that first game.
Ricky O'Donnell, thank you very much for your time. Of course, check out all of Ricky's work on SBNation.com. He's going to be covering the tournaments from all sorts of different angles and is heading up our coverage. Obviously, we're gonna go through each and every one of these regions. We're going to start with the East, and I should mention our friends at Intel. Fantastic job sponsoring this show. Speed, all sorts of speed all over this tournament. If nothing else, it could be the fastest tournament we've ever seen.
Right.
So with that said, let's go through the East. Obviously, Villanova, you've mentioned, a terrific path deep.
Yeah, they have chemistry. These guys have played together 2-3 years. They ran through the Big East, in my opinion. I think what's interesting, though, and they'll get past NC State or LSU, but both those teams are talented but have been inconsistent. I think that presents an interesting second, third, whatever you want to call it, round matchup for them.
Right.
But Villanova hasn't been getting a lot of attention or enough respect, I feel like, and I think that this is a clear-cut #1 team. They can definitely walk through this region. I think that the guys that have played together for so long will be just fine, and they'll play into the Elite Eight or something like that.
What type of team do you think Villanova is susceptible against? Obviously, with Virginia at the bottom of this region, you make a distinction between Virginia's defense and Kentucky's defense, that Virginia's defense is what compared to Kentucky's?
Mentally exhausting.
You're right.
Versus Kentucky, which is physically exhausting.
They're so big.
I think both those teams are hard to play for 40 minutes. We've all seen that. Virginia hasn't been up, as Kentucky has too, but Virginia hasn't always been up in every game.
Right.
But they just play so slow, but they are efficient on offense, and to the point where they can always set up their half-court defense. They can go for full court if they want to. And Dick Bennett's just such a good coach. Those guys are disciplined. It's a great system. I think it's really hard to play.
But the Justin Anderson thing, too.
The Justin Anderson thing, too. But then Villanova's a team, because they have great experienced guards, they're not going to succumb to that as easily as many other teams in the tournament.
Great, and let's talk more about Villanova right now with Ryan Sackerman. Ryan, how are you feeling looking at the draw? It seems that the consensus is that the Wildcats have a very favorable look in the region. Is that your general reaction? How do you feel looking forward?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on.
No problem.
Glad to be here. When I'm going into the selection show, I knew they'd get the 1 seed, especially with Duke and Virginia losing. I'm sure they would be the 1 seed in the East, especially. If you asked me, about a month or so ago, I would be afraid of Virginia, but the way they've been playing, I heard you guys talking about it now, especially with Anderson. I don't think they're nearly as scary. Oklahoma, I know the Big 12 is a conference that a lot of people looked at as one of the best conferences in the country. So Oklahoma might be giving us some issues. But to be honest, it's Providence that's really scaring me because when we played them 3 times this year, they've given us a good run each time. So to be honest, while I feel like a lot more confident this year than last year heading to the Final Four, I know that no road is really easy.
Ryan, can you make a case for Villanova as a 1 seed? I mean, I'm on board with it, but I think a lot of people talk about, well, they played in the Big East that was a little bit softer, and they may struggle against more physical teams. I, again, am not someone that says that, but a lot of people were saying that throughout the season. Can you sort of state a case to say that and dispute all of that? Because obviously if they win, that's going to be refuted. But do you think that, is there anything that you can say right now that would justify that they could definitely beat anybody in the country if they play their game?
Well, I do agree that if they face a team with a really good front court, that's going to give them some issues. If you look just at the Big East tournament, they were out-rebounded, especially against Providence, especially on the offensive rebounding end. But what I think people look at the Big East and you have Villanova, and then you just have some okay teams.
Right.
You don't have an ACC where you got Duke, Virginia, UNC, these big powerhouses. At the same time, though, you look at the Big East, and there's a lot of really solid teams. You have Georgetown, Providence, Xavier, Butler, not the kind of teams that are going to wow you, but they play really tough basketball. Every game is gritty. It's a fight to the end. And while these teams aren't really flashy, I think now people are going to get a chance to see you wait. While this team isn't the one that's going to do your windmill dunks and shoot the lights out almost every game, they're a really good team. They pass the ball well. They're unselfish. And I think people are going to really see now, okay, this team is for real.
Ryan, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to a lot more Nova in our lives. All right, I mean, you're obviously feeling terrific about Villanova. We're gonna touch on teams that have been in the Big East recently and have now moved on. But the East it's shaping up very nice for them. And Oklahoma, I know you like a lot. But we're actually going to touch on Louisville now, also in that region, and Mike Rutherford. A tale of 2 real teams this year, with and without a suspended member of their team. Mike, when you look at Louisville as they stand today, where is your confidence level?
Well, I think the confidence level with the team is erratic, understandably so, given their up and down play over the last couple of months. But I think Louisville fans are really, really ecstatic over this draw because, one, I'm pretty sure most Louisville fans believe they were going to be a number 5 seed, and 2, because they're not matched up in the same region as Kentucky, which is something that all Louisville fans have been kind of paranoid over really for the last 4 or 5 months. Everyone just kind of assumed they'd be in the Midwest with the UK. And now to see them on the totally opposite side of the bracket just has a lot of people really, really relieved.
Mamadou Ndiaye is 8 feet tall. What do you think he can do, Mike, against Montrezl Harrell, at least on the defensive end?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting matchup just because if you watch them play the last 2 nights, real late night on ESPNU, if he just stands there, he can really, really limit not just big men but power forwards as well as driving guards. And a lot of Louisville's offense this year has been based on Terry Rozier cutting and setting up Montrezl Harrell, who's standing along the baseline. And his presence alone, just being there, kind of takes that away. So I do think it's a lot more of an issue than maybe Louisville fans are giving him credit for right now. But he's not just a 7'6" dude. He's really, really skilled, and I think he presents a huge challenge for Louisville's front line.
Mike, when you look at Louisville as they stand now, what are you most confident in? Obviously, is that they've had to shuffle lineups and rosters. Where is your confidence right now with the Cardinals in terms of what they are doing right now in the present?
Well, I think you're confident in the fact that Rick Pitino is your head coach. That's really about it because this is a team that has struggled to score all year long, and that didn't change. In the second half of their quarterfinal ACC tournament loss in North Carolina, they shot 22% from the field. And it's a team that plays hard, is good defensively, kind of gets what they want on offense, but just can't make shots. So I think you kind of just have to put your faith in the guru, Rick Pitino, have him, getting this team ready to go and put them in the best possible position to make a run to at least that second weekend of the tournament.
Mike, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to seeing a lot more Louisville as we look at the next couple of weeks. We have a treat. We have something special. John Boyce making his video debut, at least himself on camera. Of course, you know him from Breaking Madden and the wackiness that ensues once you give him a controller and a TV, an Xbox, and some time. We present to you the first installment of the Terrible Internet Things bracket, and John's going to go through region number 1.
Nick and Dan, thank you so very much. We are going to get right to the heart of this Bad Internet Things tournament, and we're going to start with the toughest region of them all, the Midwest region. Let's start with the 1 seed, someone IMing you on Facebook, versus the 16 seed, local TV station websites. That's going to be a close one. Let's move on to the 8 seed, ad plays, actual video doesn't, versus the 9 seed, atheists who love to argue. That is going to be a close one. Let's move on to the 5 seed, Kickstarters for weddings, versus the 12 seed, Tinder photo as a guy in Oakley's with a fish he caught. That's going to be a close one. On to the 4 seed, Facebook rearranging your feed, versus 13, anytime AOL does anything. That's going to be a close one. Let's move on to the 6 seed, Google killing Google Reader, RIP, versus the 11 seed, person on every single GoToMeeting call who is banging a pot and shrieking. That is going to be a close one. Over to the 3 seed, LinkedIn request from your old high school teacher, versus the 14 seed, John Boyce's Twitter feed. That's going to be a close one. 7 seed, all internet discourse about bacon, versus the 10 seed, March Madness bracket repurposing tropes. That's going to be a close one. And now down to the 2 seed, iTunes, just iTunes, versus the 15 seed, 23-year-old bachelor Instagramming his fried eggs. That is going to be a close one. Back to you, Nick and Dan.
Well, I think they're all going to be pretty close. That's what I'm getting there.
I don't use iTunes. I'm a Spotify guy.
iTunes is the worst.
It just sucks up your life.
Unless you want to sponsor a show on SB Nation.
Yeah,
we love iTunes.
Why don't we get Spotify to sponsor
Absolutely.
it? Kickstarter for weddings is an interesting thing.
I had never heard that was a
Well,
thing.
you know what I've heard? This is what's happening. People are doing that to get to the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. They're trying to get funded.
People are so weird.
It's kind of smart.
No, I think
someone's
going to
give them money.
All right, let's go to the South right now. Duke is another team, another 1 seed. We talked about Villanova just now. Duke, another really nice path. Obviously, Gonzaga is the 2 seed in the South. Gonzaga coming off a very, very nice season led by Kyle Wiltshire. But Duke, player of the year, could be the number 1, should be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. How do you evaluate the South?
I think they get a pretty good draw here. Again, Georgetown, if they beat 2, because I think Stephen F. Austin's going to beat Utah. That's my upset pick.
Utah's not been good.
They've been playing 500 basketball for the last month. Statistically, on paper, it looks like they would be fine with Stephen F. Austin, but just what I've seen, I'm not sold on them. And Georgetown can't beat 2 double-digit seeds in a season. That never happens.
That would be ridiculous.
Come on.
That
hasn't happened in like 80 years.
No.
So I think Duke's okay because San Diego State, no offense. St. John's inconsistent. So I think Duke's fine to get the Elite 8.
If you were to have a concern about Duke, though, at this point in the tournament, what is the lightning bolt that goes off in your head?
Jahlil Okafor shooting
free
throws. He cannot shoot free throws. I think he's 50% on the season, but it seems worse than that. It's going to turn into hack a jaw. There'll be a name for it. I was at a Duke game a few weeks ago, and the crowd jeered him when he made a free throw. They gave him a fake standing ovation. It's just kind of like, it's bad. I mean, and the offense starts inside out with him. He's got to touch the ball every possession. So if it's a late, close game, it could be something where we can't have him in the game, or I don't know, dude. You got to make a free throw.
And other than Coach K, I mean, obviously Mark Few is a fantastic coach. You have a Hall of Fame coach in this region. In Larry Brown. You've got a legitimate star, even though he's at a small school at Eastern Washington, Tyler Harvey, leading the nation in scoring. So there are little bubbles to like. I know bubble is a very popular word, but all over this region, there's a lot to like about just pure entertainment. I know a lot of people like Davidson at this point with how they've been playing. You're up and down with them.
Davidson's very talented. Well, they're not very talented. They're very well coached,
right,
and they play smart, and they're good shooting. They're a good offensive team. But Gonzaga is just a terrible matchup for them. I think they can get by Iowa because they're such an enigma, the Hawkeyes. I don't know what you're going to get from them.
Sure.
My basic take from that 7-10 game is pick who you want. Neither of those teams can beat Gonzaga in the second round, so it's not going to blow up your bracket regardless of who you pick.
And you know what you're getting from Duke, but you don't. Gonzaga is a team that they get to the Elite 8 long ago. But now 99. They're back. Now they're back at a place where I don't know if we've seen them on this high level. What makes this Gonzaga team better?
They're complete. They have a guy at every position that can beat you. They have big guys that are skilled, and they have had big guys in the past that are skilled. But I think they have 8 guys that can actually beat you and score a lot of points on a given night. And when you have, I love point guards that can shoot and score versus just distribute. And Kevin Pangos is one of that guys. I think he's the all-time leading three-point shooter at the school. He also can distribute to a guy like Wiltshire and Wesley. They're going to be fine. I mean, I think Iowa State will pose a great challenge for them. It's such an offensive-focused team, but just the skill that Gonzaga has on both sides of the ball, they should be able to get by them.
All right, Gonzaga, a team obviously that does lose to Arizona did lose to Arizona during the regular season. We're now joined by Jason from Arizona Desert Swarm. You got to be feeling good, Arizona, a dominant Pac-12 tournament. Where is your head at right now with Arizona? A strong argument to be made as the number 1 seed, but they get the 2 seed and they're in the West.
Yeah, Arizona's they're definitely playing their best basketball right now. It's not even close. They lost to ASU about a month ago, and then since that game, they've just been playing on a whole other level, and no one's really been able to touch them at all.
All right, so what are you feeling particularly good about? What have they done this past month that perhaps they weren't doing at the beginning of the season when we knew they had the potential to be a top 5 team?
I think so. Guys like Brandon Ashley and Caleb Tarzewski are definitely just killing it right now. Ashley was just named the most outstanding player of the Pac-12 tournament. And he's a guy last year, if you were looking at that Wisconsin game from last year's Elite Eight, if Brandon Ashley had been there, maybe things turned out a little differently than how it ended up.
And where's your confidence level right now with Sean Miller? Obviously, a lot of people know how talented a coach he is. What has he been doing this season, perhaps? And obviously, it's a talent thing as well. But what has Sean Miller done to impress you with how dominant Arizona has looked of late?
I think it's just getting his guys to buy into the whole team thing. Stanley Johnson, he's a physical freak, and people will see that this month. But just getting him to buy into the team thing kind of took forever at the beginning, and now that's really starting to click, and they're playing better defense as a whole just because guys like Stanley are buying into that team concept.
And without looking too far ahead to a potential Wisconsin matchup in the Elite Eight, on the side of the bracket that finds Arizona with VCU, Ohio State, and Baylor, and Xavier obviously as a 6th seed, is there a particular team there that Arizona you feel like might struggle with just because of their own weaknesses, limited as they may be, and the strengths of a couple of those teams on that side?
I think Baylor, any of those Big 12 teams are scary. I think Baylor could present some interesting issues with their athletes. I'd be rooting for Xavier with Sean Miller going up against his former school there. But I think Baylor, out of those teams in that part of the bracket, are probably the most dangerous right now.
Fair enough. And when you look at Arizona, how far do you think what is the ceiling, I would say, for you with this Arizona team? Is there anything that concerns you, not with who they potentially could be playing, but with what they did when they did have a couple of tough road losses and what they did show or not show? Where is the concern for you when you look around the roster, when you look at some of the past results?
Yeah, the concern is probably missing a consistent long-range threat. Gabe York has been another guy who's kind of turned it up as of late, but those games mostly came down to just missing shots and not being able to go against a strong zone defense. So if a team is really effective with their zone, I think that's what will give Arizona the biggest problem. But they're playing so well right now that it seems like an Elite Eight is definitely, that's the expectation around here right now.
Fair enough. All right, Jason, thank you very much for your time. Arizona's fun.
They're awesome.
Arizona is awesome. They're great.
You see they do the lights? They got the Hollywood lights now.
Oh, it's so nice. I like that. It's very dramatic.
It's cool to see Miller build that program up. I think some people are like, can he get it back to where Lute Olson did? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a rebranding. They're just as exciting and fun as they were during Olson's time, but they got a little more swagger or something. I don't know.
I like that. Yeah. I like that swagger. And this is actually, it's a really interesting region because obviously Oregon is going to come out of it and go to the Final Four. Now, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah.
You could have said it.
Right? I have Lafayette in my Final Four. I've got Oregon, Pennsylvania. It's all looking terrific for me. No, it's an interesting region, of course, because you have 2 teams that are legitimate 1 seeds, even though Arizona is a 2 seed.
Yeah, sometimes I get kind of not pissed off, but people talk a lot about who should be a 1 seed or a 2 seed. It's like if you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you're gonna have to beat a 1 seed or a 2 seed to get to the Final Four. In theory, So what is the big difference, really? I don't know. So. It's fine.
The big difference, I guess, would be rewarding Arizona for the past month of their season in the tournament. But that's fine.
They can beat Wisconsin, so I don't care.
All right. So what is it about Wisconsin that A, you think they could be beatable, and B, really impresses you with how they got to become a number 1 seed?
They're super efficient and disciplined.
Yes.
A lot like Villanova. I don't want to say Villanova's a poor man's Wisconsin, but it's the same sort of thing where the chemistry is there. You had 0 roster turnover from a season ago.
Right.
Trayvon Jackson, the starting point guard, gets hurt. They're bringing Bonson Koenig to back him up, or take on the starting role. They do not miss a beat. Sam Decker put on a lot of weight over the summer, and he's a real true, I think, he's an NBA player now. Kaminsky, he sometimes struggles inside because, he grew a ton.
Right,
and
but has taken steps forward.
But he
this
has
year,
improved his post game. I see it now, and he's not afraid to go up against guys down low. I think if Wisconsin gets to playing Kentucky or something, I think they would get walloped just based on the sheer size. But then you're like, well, Bo Ryan, he never gets blown out.
Right, this is true.
He's always, playing smart basketball. He recruits smart players.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that Arizona's physical nature is going to give, and Kentucky's too, if that would ever get to that point, would give Wisconsin fits for, a full 40 minutes.
All right, we didn't spend a ton of time in the South when we moved on to Arizona. Of course, Stephen F. Austin, a winning team from last season, and you think they might even be better this season.
Yeah, on paper, they're just as good as last year.
Right.
And remember, last year they were undefeated in conference play. So coming into Selection Sunday, they were getting a lot of buzz because they got the nation's longest winning streak, well, aside from Wichita State, and they could do damage. This team is very similar. Remember, they beat Oklahoma. They beat VCU in the first round last year. Same sort of team. I mean, I think that they could very easily pull off the upset against Utah.
Right. All right. We are now joined by St. John's head coach Steve Lavin. Coach, how are you feeling today? Of course, taking on San Diego State. We are going to be joined momentarily by Steve Lavin, but that's okay. An interesting situation, obviously, with St. John's at the moment, but there's no denying their talent.
They've been talented since Lavin stepped into that place and that role. It's just a matter of putting it together, and I think this is their best shot. So
all right,
let's see what he has to say.
I am told now we have Coach Lavin. Coach, what was your immediate reaction when you found out that St. John's will have San Diego State in the opening round?
Well, number one, just pleased for our seniors who have worked so hard to punch through and get St. John's back to the NCAA tournament. It's a group of 5 seniors all earned their degree, and that's rare in this era. So pleased for them. It's a situation where I've been fortunate to participate in 15 NCAA tournaments, 8 as a head coach, 7 as an assistant coach with stops at Purdue and UCLA and now St. John's. But just happy for the young people in our program. As you guys know, Christmas Eve, shaking the presents, or ripping, the wrapping off the presents in the morning of Christmas.
Yep.
Easter egg hunts, probably right up there. Halloween, but that childlike spirit to experience it through young people's eyes is what it's all about in this business. So just happy for our seniors.
Excellent. For me, it was Hanukkah, but it's okay. It's all the same.
Oh, yes.
It's all the same. Coach Lavin, specific.
And Tooth Fairy too. The first time the Tooth Fairy dropped a couple bucks under the pillow.
Yeah.
That was kind of the entrepreneurial spirit moving forward from then on.
I love that.
Appreciation. Barter system, yeah.
Huge
Great
night.
loss.
When you look at San Diego State specifically, obviously a terrific defensive team. How much do you know about the Aztecs? How much have you seen of the Aztecs? Obviously, you pretty much could not be playing a school farther away from St. John's. So what do you know tonight?
Dwayne Poley played for us, transferred. He's had some health issues, but it was a amicable, split. And we keep in touch with Dwayne and his family. And so it was a win-win situation. He's going to earn his degree, and they're in the NCAA tournament. We're in the NCAA tournament as well. Got great respect for Coach Fisher, as well as Coach Dutcher, who's been his right-hand man for years. And we'll start to do our film work in terms of, preparation and logistics here tonight. Of course, we had a nice send-off rally. Enjoyed watching the selection show with the students on campus. And we had some media, and then jumped on the phone with you guys. And now we'll start to, drill down on San Diego State. So we'll know much more in the morning. But I respect their program. They're in the NCAA tournament on a regular basis. And I know they've got great size and length around the rim. So they present a real challenge for us.
Coach, you won't have Chris Obekpa for this game against San Diego State. How does that change your game plan or how you'll approach trying to beat San Diego State?
Well, it's unfortunate that we won't have Chris or Chris's services, but over the past 3 years, this group of seniors has had to play without Chris before,
right?
Whether it was through injuries or, fouling out of ball games or stretches where we just chose to go small, press, and play with 5 guards, kind of a small ball, Charlie Spoonhour, Don Nelson of the the NBA. We play that way often. I did at UCLA, and I've done it here. And so not much phases this group of seniors. That's one of the values of having an older group. So we like the quickness of our team. We like the skill, the scrappiness of our particular team. And yet we know San Diego State presents a real challenge, and most concerning is their experience. They go to the NCAA tournament every year. We've been working to get St. John's back in the NCAA tournament. So that experience gives San Diego State an edge, but I like our kids as well. They've played a tough schedule, number 23 in the country, 9 wins over top 100, and a strong RPI, and playing well of late, winning 7 of 10.
All right, Steve Lavin, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to you and St. John's as you make your way into the NCAA tournament.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, fellas, we'll do it again. Take
Yes. All right, when you look at St. John's specifically, what to you is good St. John's? Obviously, they go as a certain player goes. So what does good St. John's look like?
D'Angelo Harrison scoring, not going crazy, and also passing. Because they're very talented. You could argue they're the second most just talented team in the Big East. Georgetown may be the second, but they're up there in terms of just guys that he was able to bring in on the recruiting trail. Not having Obekpa, I think, hurts them, but it doesn't totally just crush them against a San Diego State team.
A San Diego State team that struggles on offense immensely.
Like, really bad. Last year, we were saying they were bad on offense. This year, they don't. I think, what did they win, like 38-32 last night or something?
It's
lost
a little
to
ugly.
Wyoming.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's just pathetic. I shouldn't say pathetic, but it's not.
Underwhelming, to say the least.
Underwhelming. But he does bring up a good point. San Diego State's always in the tournament. Steve Fisher's a good coach. So I think that just you give him some time to prepare for St. John's, I mean, that's going to make it a little more difficult. He's going to be able to game plan well against St. John's, so Lavin has his work kind of.
And as he mentioned, they are battle tested. They play a very nice, impressive schedule there. They could potentially get Duke in the second round if they get past San Diego State. And that's a challenge. That's a mountain that is very difficult to climb, but they do have the athleticism to hang at least with Duke in the backcourt.
Well, yeah, they do. And remember, St. John's lost to Duke at MSG this year. It was Coach K's 1,000th victory.
Yes.
And St. John's had them. I think they were up 6-8 points with 5 minutes left, and they didn't pull it off. But they've seen Duke. They know Duke well. They clearly feel like they can play with them. So that could help them if they play into the next round.
Absolutely. And thanks again to Coach Lavin. We now go to region number 2 of Mr. John Boyce's terrible internet things brackets. I'm feeling like there's going to be some close ones.
Nick and Dan, thank you once again, and we are going to move on to the next region of the Bad Internet Things bracket. This is the West region, which is easily the toughest region of all of them. Let's start with a 1 seed, pop-up ads on illegal sports feeds, versus 16 seed, person who types "wow" in front of every retweet. That's going to be a close one. On to the 8 seed, roughly 85% of internet men versus the 9 seed, everything longer than 4,000 words. Everything. Que va ser muy estrecha. On to the 5 seed, vaping, and the 12 seed, everyone who hates vaping. That's going to be a close one. To the 4 seed, anyone who charges money for a how to blog class, versus the 13 seed, expert village videos that are split into 14 parts. That's going to be a close one. On to the 6 seed, somehow ending up on answers.com, who knows how, versus the 11 seed, Craigslist dating. That is going to be a close one. On to the 3 seed, people who threaten to unfollow celebrities, versus 14 seed, Yelp reviewer who quotes the no tipping scene from Reservoir Dogs. That's going to be a close one. On to the 7 seed, official live TV streams that play the same 4 ads over and over and over, versus the 10 seed, podcast music is podcaster's band recorded through his crappy iPhone. That's going to be a close one. And finally, the 2 seed, manual retweeters, versus the 15th seeded, bloggers going on camera. That's going to be a close one. Nick and Dan?
I think, do you have a particular...
Vaping.
The vaping?
Just the whole vaping thing, just...
So you favor vaping over people that don't like vaping?
But I don't like vaping at all. I just think everything about it is...
Right.
It's like there's a subculture about it.
Right. You're not on board.
No, it's stupid.
I don't know how, in terms of bad internet things, I don't know how 85% of men loses. I think I'm going chalk there. I think they're making their way all the way because we are an exceptionally awful gender. That is how that works.
We're pretty cold-blooded.
I'm using the royal we for a reason. All right, let's take a look at the Midwest. Obviously, it seems like the easiest pick, but in the region itself, when you look at the Midwest, this is Kentucky's region.
Yeah.
Who has the best shot to slow down the Wildcats?
It's not a real.
I'm circling Texas because they shouldn't be there. Valpo, you feel good about Valpo?
Nope.
Nope, you're not feeling good about Valpo. Bob Huggins, he wears sweatpants.
Okay, so West Virginia, when I watched them play, I think this is a team that can make noise in the tournament.
Why?
Because they have two good guards that are not 100% healthy right now, but if they are healthy, they're in good shape. Huggins is a good tournament coach.
True.
They're a little undersized. They don't shoot the ball very well, but they're a good offensive rebounding team, so they can kind of drag you out. But it's going to come down if Jawan Staten and Gary Brown can actually go off, maybe score 20 points each or something like that. They could make a run. I mean, they're not going to beat Kentucky, but I think that team could. People are saying Buffalo's going to upset them. I don't see that happening.
You don't feel good about the Bulls?
No,
okay.
I think West Virginia will pull that one out if I say that now, and who knows what will happen. But
right.
I like them on paper and from what I've seen. So
right. Notre Dame is obviously the big name with how they've played of late. They've beaten Duke a couple of times.
Yeah.
Offensively, they're terrific. They have a legitimate star. How does Notre Dame match up, not just against Kentucky, but the teams on their side of the bracket? Obviously, it appears like they would have Butler. Indiana's a team that can get hot. Wichita State has the experienced backcourt. And, of course, Kansas, talent-wise, it's hard to match with Kansas talent
so the thing about Notre Dame, they won the ACC, which I think was great. You know, I don't know when the last time someone beat Duke and UNC in consecutive nights.
Right.
But what's interesting is there's no correlation out there about, you get hot when your conference tournament and then you're set.
Let's keep it going.
It doesn't
unless you have Jerry McNamara.
Right, that's different. But it doesn't always. People think like that. So now everyone's keying on Notre Dame. It's like, oh, they are definitely going to go to the Elite Eight. I think that they actually will go to the Elite Eight because all season they were one of the most.
It's not just the conference.
Yeah, they were one
momentum.
of the best offensive teams. The problems with that is they're a little undersized and they don't play very good defense. But they did play very good defense against a physical and bigger UNC team. So. Maybe, Mike Bray is getting something in Zach August that he wasn't getting earlier in the season. If he can rebound, keep possessions alive, they're definitely an Elite Eight team.
Okay, finish this sentence. Kentucky is at their best. They're obviously always at a very high level. They go undefeated, but they're at their best when they are blank.
When they have the ball on a 3-and-2 transition and Willie Cauley-Stein is just doing this, he's saying, throw me the ball, and it's an alley-oop dunk.
Here is my impression of people trying to guard Willie Cauley-Stein in the open court.
Ha! Yeah, don't put me on the poster. I don't want to be on the poster.
Yeah, just cover your eyes, maybe blur it out yourself. Yeah, it really is a matter. Kentucky plays volleyball at the rim just because they're so big, and defensively it's just so difficult to get anything easy against Kentucky.
Yeah. When you saw them play Auburn yesterday, they do such a good job at getting easy buckets off a block or a steal. So they points off turnovers. I don't know where they rank in the country, but I would imagine they're in the top 5 in points scored off turnovers. So they just have to be just the way they play.
And so there is obviously no specific formula for beating Kentucky beyond just playing perfectly and excellently in all phases. But if you were game planning against these specific players on Kentucky with a wealth of experience by Kentucky standards at this point, just having the Harrison twins, having Willie Cauley-Stein back, what are you doing?
I don't know. No, I shouldn't say that. You got to play really slow.
Okay.
You cannot turn the ball over.
So disciplined.
And if you're going to turn the ball over, you have to give up something in your game. So if
the way you're talking, by the way, it almost sounds like you're talking about Wisconsin, just with how disciplined they are.
And I think Arizona's still better.
Arizona.
But I know what you're saying. So it's like if you aren't going to get beat in transition, you're going to have to give up the fact that you're not going to go after and get offensive rebounds.
Right.
If you're going to crash the boards and try and out-rebound them, you're going to have to accept the fact that sometimes they're going to be on the other end of the court in 10 seconds scoring on you. So you have to give up something in your game. You have to close them out and make them take shots that they don't want to take. They're not a great shooting team.
Right. And it hasn't mattered.
It hasn't. Right. But Devin Booker's a great shooter.
Yes.
The Harrisons hit clutch shots, but game in, game out, statistically, they're not a very good three-point shooting team.
Right.
So if you can say, look, if we can get you into a half-court game, limit the number of possessions, make you take three-pointers, maybe you'll make them. You're not a terrible three-point shooting team, but if there's one thing...
If you're finding that, if you have to search for it...
you can't... Kentucky has to kind of beat themselves, too.
Right.
Like, something has to happen on that team where
foul trouble early for a bunch of guys.
Foul trouble, I don't know, an injury or something.
Yes.
But when you go 9-10...
No, that's the point we're at. You're like act of God, essentially.
When you go 9-10 deep, it's hard to say, oh, we can shut this. You can't shut down a group of 10 All-Americans down. You just can't do it.
I would also suggest shooting 87% from beyond the arc.
That will be a start, but I don't even know if that
just
gets you.
a start.
I mean, I said, I'm going to just toot my horn. I said when they beat Kansas by 30 in November, I was like, this team is going undefeated. They're special. They're going to go undefeated. And here we are.
So. Across the Midwest, when you just look at pure matchups, of course, Texas is a team a lot of people don't feel like has the resume, as you mentioned, right around 500, if that, in Big 12 play. It really, Wichita State, of course, had all the attention last year as the sort of smaller mid-major school. Obviously, karl-Anthony early to the NBA, but still an experienced backcourt. Whereas Wichita State this season, as compared to last year, the coach obviously is fantastic.
I think not having early is a huge miss because, you saw him against Kentucky last year, and he was able to score on a bunch of NBA players.
Right.
He was a man in that game, and they don't have that. Ron Baker and Van Fleet are still, that's a great backcourt. Probably still one of the best backcourts in the country, but they don't have that next option that can help them out. Van Fleet's had a great year, but I would bet if we were to ask their coach, how do you feel about the amount of minutes and production that you've had to get from Van Fleet this season? He'd say, I wish we could have him defer to a couple other people, and it just hasn't been there. They're still good. They lost. They were upset in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. If they beat Illinois State and then maybe beat Northern Iowa, they would have been a 5 seed and not a 7 seed. So we'd probably elevate them even more, like, oh, they're a great team. So they're not the same team as last year, but cool thing, though, is they could get Kansas in the second round.
And in-state matchup,
it's like little boy versus, a big dog in that state, and I think they could knock Kansas off. Kansas is very inconsistent this year.
What is it about Kansas that has you worried?
I don't know if Bill Self knows.
Big Self.
Big Bill Self.
Big Bill, what was it, Bucknell Bill?
Bucknell.
Can we still call him that or no? Okay.
I don't know if he knows how to use his bigs. Cliff Alexander may not play in the tournament.
And he's run the high-low for a long time.
But he was sitting him before that even happened, and people were kind of like, his minutes are down. He's still more efficient than Landon Lucas and Jamari Traylor. Those guys are okay. Perry Ellis isn't 100% right now.
Right.
They're not a great shooting team. I think Frank Mason has become a very good point guard. He's really elevated himself. But I don't see it with them. Like, on paper, their numbers look good.
Right.
It's Kansas. They've been a 2-seed or above, I think, since 2009.
Yep.
But they haven't always gone to the Final Four and Elite Eight. I just think that it just doesn't look like a normal Kansas team this year.
So you don't have them, you mean Sweet 16 you feel like is their ceiling?
I think that's their ceiling, and I think Wichita State knocks them off. That's my upset right now.
All right, a team we haven't discussed, a team that's been in the top 10 and oddly maybe seated a little bit low, Maryland, with one of the most singular athletic players in the country in Des Wells. Maryland, what is their ceiling, and what are they doing well right now?
They do a good job. They have pretty good balance on the perimeter. They got Trimble, who had a great freshman season. I think he was an All-American, McDonald's All-American, but he played even better than people had anticipated. Des Wells has had a great career. He left Xavier. It's kind of a bummer for Xavier fans.
Right.
And he's really turned into a great player in the ACC and then now the Big Ten. It seems like when they win close games, when they beat Wisconsin, like, he had the game. So we need that. They're going to need Des Wells to step up and do his thing, and he can do that.
Right.
I also like Jake Layman because he's a tall, big, kind of like a Kaminsky.
Sure.
You can run a lot of pick and pops with him, and that's what they've been doing this season. So you get Layman getting to pick for Tremble, see if he's open, kick it out for him to over 3, or then go down low and see if Wells is cutting. They have options if you come off that screen, because Tremble can score for himself too. You can't just you can double team him, but then someone's open. So.
Right, and an incredible season as their first season in the Big Ten, taking down Wisconsin, taking down Michigan State to open up their conference.
I was very impressed with how they played this year.
Yeah, and this is not a team known necessarily for schematics, X's and O's. They rely on their talent. They run not simple things, but they're decidedly focused.
Kind of
on
like
what
I said,
they do.
they're going to use those 3 guys a lot to get their points.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough. And so I guess we're going Notre Dame if a team is going to take down Kentucky.
I guess, but they're not even that big. That's a team where.
So who has the size then? Is it West Virginia? Who has the size? Because they're a guard-driven team as well.
It's kind of like Cincinnati, just because they're always a physical team, but they're not that talented.
Right.
I would say Kansas just because they have a volume amount of bigs.
Right.
And Texas because they have Ridley and Miles Turner, but at the same time they've underperformed this year, and I don't expect them.
Isn't it funny that you say Kansas when 3 seconds ago you were like, well, I knew Kentucky was special when they beat Kansas by 30.
30, yeah.
So
and now they're the 2 seed.
Now they're the 2 seed. They're the team that is allegedly the one with the best chance.
If Texas had played to their potential and what we expected out of them this year,
and especially Miles Turner coming in with a very
and they
talented
were a 2, maybe a 3 seed in this bracket, I'd say. And they played Kentucky pretty tough this year.
They did.
Way long ago, but they need Jonathan Holmes to really step up. He was their wing player. He had a great non-conference season. I think he got injured, missed a few games in the Big 12 conference schedule, and his offensive efficiency ratings just fell down. And so he's just not the same player. It kind of disrupts Isaiah Taylor and what he wants to do. It makes him do a lot with the ball. They're just not there. And then you wonder, like, if they lose this game, is it an upset? And then do you fire Rick Barnes? You wonder what Rick Barnes' future is here. If he gets
what is your ruling at this point on Rick Barnes? Has Texas reached? I mean, they have a very special player a few years ago in Kevin Durant, but short of that, and they lose first round to USC, or I think it was the first. No, it was.
They won a game maybe, but they didn't make a run for sure.
Right, they did not make a run with Durant. Can Texas do better?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. This is interesting, and I've heard other people say this, is that might be one of the best jobs in America.
Certainly,
because think about it. What do people care about in Texas most? Football.
Right.
But there's a lot of good basketball players that come out of Dallas, Houston, and Austin.
And it's a similar thing to what USC is going through in LA. It's a football school, and people seem to ignore that.
So, like, if Kentucky had struggled for this long, Rick Barnes would have been canned 3-4 years ago. You know? But he, I think, is getting that. They're just dragging him along because it's okay to be okay at Texas, I think.
Right.
You know?
We've gone all around the country. To you, the double-digit seeds that maybe not necessarily because of their specific road, but which double-digit seeds do you feel like are the most talented and most complete, just pure basketball teams?
Yeah, I definitely think Stephen F. Austin.
Okay.
I think Utah's a good defensive team, but because they haven't played that well lately, that's a game they can win. I really like them. I think Eastern Washington, just because they have Tyler Harvey, the leading scorer in the country, I mean, you cannot discount something like
Absolutely
that.
not.
Especially when you're playing Georgetown.
Volume scorer.
Volume scoring, just take the shot.
Take it.
Think about it. He's going to have the green light
Absolutely.
all game. You're in an NCAA tournament, and you're not going to say stop shooting. So
Right.
He'll probably put up 20, 25 shots in this game, and hopefully he scores 40 points or something.
All right, fair enough. That's absolutely fair. I mean, you look at the 15 seeds, there's not much to love about Texas Southern, North Dakota State. Obviously, the Dakotas have produced some winning recently, but it does not seem like there's that singular player down in like the 14, 15 seed area that can make a huge difference.
No, I can't see. I mean, maybe Belmont because, they've been in the tournament before, and they beat Murray State, who people were saying, should have been in the tournament. Well, not should have been in the tournament, but they were nationally ranked.
Right there, right.
So they're kind of a name brand as a mid-major, so we'll look at them.
Sure.
Another double-digit team, but their perennial powerhouse is Ohio State because they have D'Angelo Russell, who's one of the most creative guards in the country
Ridiculous.
Right now.
Those passes through the lane.
Yeah, I mean, and he does a pretty good job taking care of the ball. He's a point guard, but he can score and he can pass. So I think he'll be okay against VCU's havoc defense. I mean, I think he can kind of neutralize that himself because he's just so
that handle
talented.
is ridiculous.
Yeah, so.
All right, another gentleman whose handle it might be ridiculous. We don't know. It definitely could be. John Boyce with region number 3 from his Bad Internet Things bracket. I feel like this is going to be excellent.
Nick and Dan, hello once again, and we are going to move on to the third region of the Bad Internet Things bracket. This is the South region, which is easily the most difficult region of the entire Bad Internet Things tournament. First up, first seeded Brands, just Brands, versus the 16th seeded. Anyone who starts anything with the words, sorry folks, that's going to be a close one. On to the 8th seed, people who complain about BuzzFeed versus the 9 seed, mayor of your city cites BuzzFeed. That's going to be a close one. On to the 5 seed, G-chatters who hit enter after every third word versus the 12 seed, people who complain about Bleacher Report. It's a great site. That's going to be a close one. On to the 4 seed, restaurant websites, all of them, versus the 13th seed, futurists. That's going to be a close one. Number 6 and the 6th seed in the tournament, writers who try to be Maddox versus the 11th seed, CrossFit message boards. That's going to be a close one. On to the 3 seed, college football fans who tweeted high school recruits versus the 14th seed, follow-up emails from PR people. That's going to be a close one. On to the 7 seed, someone asking, did you get my email in real life versus the 10 seed? Rollover ads that won't go away and tell you your opinion matters. That's going to be a close one. And finally, the 2 seed, Obama's Twitter mentions versus 15 seeded new parents on Facebook. That's going to be a close one. Back to you, Nick and Dan.
I got the chills when he read out loud follow-up emails from PR people.
You probably get that a lot.
I do, and it's chilling. And
so they follow, because I'll get them, but I'm not like big time or anything. I don't get follow-ups, but you.
Well, there'll be especially like egregious ones, and I like to answer emails. But like if it's just something ridiculous and I'm busy, I just won't respond. And then like, hey, did you get my email about astronauts that will be playing poker in 30-30? And I was like, no, I didn't get any of this. So
I will say I would put brands in
general.
That's the Kentucky of this.
Other
bracket.
than our friends at Intel.
Yeah, I know that was bad. I probably should have
No. Intel's great. I love Intel. No, it's an interesting bracket this year. We've gone all throughout. We're going to talk to Phil from Bucky's Fifth Quarter here in a minute. Bo Ryan. There's a reason why the 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, we see the same names here every year. Yeah. It's very difficult to get by on talent alone, and Wisconsin's not the most talented 1 seed, and it's probably not even close.
Yeah. They're more talented than.
Well, they have Kaminsky, obviously, and he's leading the way. But yes, they have built a team. But in terms of their system and how deliberate they do play, and how disciplined they are, it requires a certain type of player that perhaps other schools don't have. It's great to watch.
True.
Wisconsin.
I mean, he doesn't go out, kind of like Gary Williams at Maryland 10 years ago. He doesn't go out and recruit McDonald's All-Americans.
Right.
And he doesn't need to, because there's enough players out there that he can get into a system for 3 or 4 years, and you know they're always going to be there. They may have a down year 1 year because of the recruiting turnover or something like that.
Right.
But you know that the way Bo Ryan recruits and coaches, they are not going to be down.
This is true.
For more than 2 or 3 years. And we're seeing that right now. I mean, these guys are upperclassmen for the most part. A lot of them have overlapping traits, so they're interchangeable at different positions.
Right.
They have people kind of knock their depth, but I think their depth is fine because they're smart. They don't foul a lot. So, like, what's the big deal if you have a 6 or 7 man rotation? If those are your players, go with them.
That seems fair enough. All right, and other than Kaminsky, who do you like on this Wisconsin team?
I like Koenig because he was able to come in, fill Teron Jackson's role as a point guard, and they really haven't missed a beat. But one guy you got to remember coming off the bench is Dulier Dukin. Probably the coolest name in the tournament. Really good shooter, big guy, can do a lot. You don't forget a name like Dulier Dukin.
I do not forget names like
when he
Dulier
does
Dukin.
something in the tournament, you'll remember, okay, that's my cool Wisconsin player that I'm pulling for.
And they have Carolina in the first round. Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina. All right. Wisconsin's looking good. Iowa State is a team that I'm very interested in. Who do we have on the phone? I'm sorry, one more time. I didn't hear you in my ear. We have Mike. Where's Mike from?
This is Phil. Phil Mitten.
Oh, we do have Phil. That's what I was
Quarter.
told. Okay, Phil, Bucky's Fifth Quarter. We're talking about Wisconsin. Where is your confidence level right now with really just how good the Badgers have looked?
I'm going to give it a 9, I suppose. They look a little tired with the rotation shortened since Jackson's been out, but you got to like how numerous players have stepped up at different times for the team. They're just so balanced right now. You're seeing Nigel Hayes really come into his own, showing off his 3-point shot lately. You got to really like how they're playing.
And what is Bucky doing at this point in the year going into the tournament that perhaps they were not showing in November or December?
That's a great question. I'd say Sam Decker getting completely healthy and more aggressive has been the key to them just kind of surging towards that number 1 seed that they finally locked down. When he's getting in the mix, fighting for rebounds, extending possessions, he's got a NBA type of game, which has been an interesting fit in his tenure at Wisconsin, since you don't think of Wisconsin playing that up-and-down style, but he adds that element to them. So as you kind of saw in their tournament run last year, this Wisconsin team's unlike the Badgers of the past, where they can play a little more up-tempo and beat you either way. Whatever way you want to play, you want to slow it down, they've been the best at that. If you want to speed it up, they've kind of got the horses now where they can do that as well. So I've been impressed with Decker joining big Frank Kaminsky in the front court. They've been playing really well of late, even though he had an off game today, but everybody else picked them up.
Hey, Phil, what do you think about Teron Jackson going into this tournament? Do you think he'll play? How do you think Bo Ryan will use him? They haven't seemed to – he's a great player, but they haven't really seemed to miss him that much with Koenig taking over the point guard position. What do you think his role is going to be for the next few weeks here?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. The conversation around, Badger circles has been we'd all like to have him back just for the depth issue to spell Koenig. Koenig, Gasser, Kaminsky, those 3 guys primarily. I guess Hayes, too. They've all just been playing very heavy minutes. They hadn't been getting production off the bench. There's a lot of inexperience there without Jackson in the lineup. So, I think it'd be really nice if they can get him quite a few minutes in the first-round matchup with Coastal Carolina. You have to anticipate Wisconsin taking care of business in that game. So I think it'll be really telling if he does not get quite a few minutes to try to work him back into the rotation. But I think basically for the tournament run, he's just going to be there to spell Koenig because Koenig's playing so well, and the team is really working well together with the youngster at the helm.
It's hard to nitpick a team that's played so well this season in the Badgers, but right now, what are you most concerned about with Wisconsin and how well Bo Ryan really has had them playing? But what too concerns you, not just when you look at the teams that potentially could be ahead, but just in general, where could they be vulnerable?
Sure. A couple issues quick would be, one, the bench play. Duken, hip Duye, he really came alive in the Big Ten tournament. His dad was a Bulls scout, so he knows all about that building, and he looked like a different player. But up until then, they hadn't really gotten any offensive production out of the bench. So if you get into a running sort of game with one of these teams, North Carolina down the road maybe coming to mind, it could become an issue if your rotation is just so short there. But another thing that kind of struck me today, Michigan State really did a great job of owning the boards against Wisconsin. And I don't know if I'm overplaying the fatigue issue with the Badgers. I might be, but they just looked a little sluggish. And, Michigan State, that's kind of Izzo's trademark. So it could be that that's not a real issue, but I was concerned with the rebounding effort today. So there's no lack of size in the West region, even down to Baylor or Arizona, North Carolina. They're going to run a lot of big, tall athletes at you. And Wisconsin's done a great job rebounding all year, especially on the offensive boards, getting more than they have in previous years. But that would be a concern where they're not going to have that huge front court advantage that they've had over many of the teams in the Big Ten.
Great. So, Phil, thank you very much for your time. Everybody do check out Bucky's Fifth Quarter for all the terrific work they do covering the Badgers. All right.
Thank you, Phil.
Let's shift our attention a little bit south. Iowa State is a team we really haven't touched on thus far, and we are fortunate enough at this moment to welcome on Coach Fred Hoiberg. Of course, the Cyclones take on UAB in the first round. How are you feeling today, Coach Hoiberg?
A little tired, to be honest with you, after the weekend that we had with the 3 straight games and fight back and battling back from 3 double-digit deficits against 3 great teams, with starting out with Texas and then going on to Oklahoma and then just finding a way to muster up some energy against Kansas. And, it was a Oklahoma game. We didn't get back to our hotel until about midnight, and then had to turn around and play at 5 yesterday. So it was an exhausting week, but a great week for us and our fans.
Yep, and usually teams that do build that momentum, it is exhausting. Luckily, you have a few days off. What are you feeling particularly good about with your team, with the Cyclones, looking ahead, not just to UAB, but the tournament as a whole? Obviously, you are taking UAB quite seriously, but in terms of just specifically your team, what do you feel good about?
Well, I guess the biggest thing that I like and that we found out here, I mean, we've got 5 games in a row now where we've gotten down double digits, and that's obviously not something you want to continue on that path. But we found a way to stick through those tough times, and I thought we handled adversity extremely well. Especially this weekend. And we were down 10 with 4 minutes to go against Texas, and found a way. And the guys just stepped up and made play after play down the stretch, and that's what they continue to do against Oklahoma and Kansas as well. So, I guess to answer your question, what do I like? I guess the fight through adversity and the toughness and resolve that we've shown as a team. Now the next step is not getting down double digits. We've got to get off to better starts if we want to do anything in this next month.
And what is it that you feel like you can do to get that focus, to get that execution early on in games, to not fall down early?
Yeah, I guess it's just, you got to come out of the gate. I didn't think it was lack of energy. I thought we settled for some long shots early. Teams hit some tough ones against us, and I thought we tried to come back and answer right away when we got down a couple baskets, as opposed to getting that thing moving and trusting your offense. And when we did that in the second halves, we played extremely well and got the ball in the right guys' place. I thought our spacing was so much better as the games went on. And George Niang and Monte Morris were phenomenal as far as getting in there and making plays for all of our guys.
And what are you doing now as of late that perhaps you weren't necessarily pleased with at the beginning of the season? Where's your team taken the strides you're most proud of?
Well, I think just how much better they're playing together, which is, I guess, something that, you ask any coach, as you get further along in the season, you want to see strides. as far as sticking together through the tough times. And I guess that's probably the biggest difference that I've seen is, earlier on in the season we'd get down 10, and a couple times that thing would go to 20, and then we'd knock it down to 10. Put our head down a little bit. The guys are really staying together right now, staying positive, even though we've gotten down in these last couple ball games. So, it's just continuing on that path. I think we're rebounding the ball a lot better. I thought we were great against Kansas in that area, and that's what you have to do. You have to rebound the ball in this tournament, take care of the ball. We had 6 turnovers yesterday, and again, just make plays on the stretch because all these games are going to be close.
Fred Hoiberg, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to you and the Cyclones.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, we are now fortunate enough to be joined once again. We had Coach Hoiberg on last year. Coach Steve Masiello from Manhattan College. Of course, they're going to be playing very soon, earlier on in the week. Coach, how are you feeling now that you've seen the bracket, now that you know where Manhattan will be?
It's always great to be a part of this tournament. And now that we know, it's a quick turnaround, we're going to probably have to travel first thing in the morning tomorrow, get out to Dayton, and prepare for an extremely dangerous Hampton team that we got to get ready for.
What do you know about Hampton with this quick turnaround?
To be honest, I don't know the specifics of them, but, after doing some research, and my staff, we're working on them now. They have 4 double-digit scorers. They just came off, winning their conference tournament. They're a team that likes to get up and down. They're going to push the basketball. They really can put it on the floor and go off the bounce. They're extremely dangerous, especially on the offensive end. They'll play you mostly man-to-man. So we have to be ready for them. Again, quick turnaround. We got to really, start to understand their strengths, how they can hurt us, how they exploit us, and be ready for it.
When you look at your roster as it stands today, where is your confidence and where is your concern looking into the tournament?
Well, my confidence is always going to be in our style of play and our culture. Just our depth. We're going to get after you. We're going to try to turn you over, get out in transition, and we're going to try to do it on the defensive end. So we have to play our brand of basketball. We understand that anyone can beat us on any given night in any situation. One of the things that makes this Hampton team, very dangerous is I saw they were 5-1 in neutral courts. So that's something we have to be ready for, and something that I'm concerned about. But we know it's not going to be an easy first-round matchup that we have to be ready for.
What do you have to do with that quick turnaround that perhaps you don't have the luxury of if you had 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to do is really just concentrate on the initial stuff. Understand, how we're going to play their pick-and-roll action, how we're going to play their post-ups. Really kind of, not make it too complicated. Where almost less is more. Really understand how they're going to want to attack, how they're going to get to the paint, and then try to take away their top 2 or 3 options.
All right, Coach Steve Masiello, Manhattan, thank you very much for your time, and good luck this week.
Thanks so much.
Coach.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, no problem. That's a team, by the way, Manhattan. When you look at some of the smaller schools in the tournament, and you have that first-round matchup early on in the week, who wants to play against that kind of pressure that soon?
No, yeah, and then go play Kentucky, maybe.
Then go play Kentucky, but even to not look too far ahead, obviously. But yes, that's one of those teams, and we see it with VCU, with their Havoc style. Like, if you're not the most talented team, which a lot of these, all of these smaller school teams aren't.
Yeah, you can get on a roll against a team, turnover after turnover.
Easier
points,
shots.
Yeah, and then you can kind of control the pace of the game and do what you want to do.
And Steve Masiello's done a fantastic job at Manhattan.
He really has. He has nothing to do with the NCAA tournament, but he was not supposed to win this league.
No.
Iona was the favorites. He beat Iona in the finals of the MAC tournament, and I'd be interested to see how his career plays out over the next few years. Cause I think
where do you see openings this year, by the way? Because we've seen Alabama.
Alabama just got rid of Anthony Grant.
Right.
Who knows with Rick Barnes? I don't know if Masiello would go to Texas.
That's a large jump.
It doesn't seem like the fit. We'll have to see what else comes down. DePaul's job just opened. That could be a fit
It's an interesting job with Chicago and the local talent available.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about Masiello, I know he's a New York guy,
right.
but he's a city guy. He's younger. Mm-hmm. He's going to be hungry to try and build that program out.
Right.
He might actually be someone that they could go after.
Interesting. All right. Elsewhere, when you look around teams that pressure well, smaller schools, I have a lot of problems. Butler, obviously, without Brad Stevens, is a different team, but they don't play all that differently.
They're not going to get blown out.
Right.
They're always going to be in a game. I don't know how they do it sometimes, but they just are constantly around.
Right.
I think they were preseason 7th or 8th by the coaches in the Big East. They finished in 2nd or 3rd. They're always going to be there. It's the style of play. I think that, again, playing a Texas team that is very helter-skelter, you would think on paper that Texas would be able to handle them, but just based on the inconsistency of Texas and the consistency that we see a lot of out of the Butler program, then that should be a game that they should be able to advance in. So
we've talked a lot about the Big 12. I know we're jumping all over the place here, but we just speak to Coach Hoiberg, and the Big 12, as we've mentioned before, so deep, so challenging there the top. Team we haven't talked about, Oklahoma, an experienced coach in Lon Kruger, really good guard play, really good defense. What do you like about Oklahoma?
I want them to be like my sleeper Final Four pick, but I don't know if I can do it.
They don't have the size. You worried about that?
So they're the best defensive team in the Big 12, which is overall a good defensive conference.
To be good in the Big 12 is to be very, very good.
Yeah, they have Buddy Hield, who is a guy that can score. I was talking to you earlier. He's like a Jody Meeks, but I think he can be better.
Right, more complete.
He can score anywhere on the court. He's had a great career at Oklahoma. He could take over a game. Their guys down low are physical. They just are shorter, so sometimes that becomes a problem. But they do things right when things are going well. But sometimes they have these spells where they just get down to Iowa State by 25, 30 points.
Right.
They sometimes had these in-game just meltdowns. But at the same time, they did finish second in the conference, so they have the talent, they have the coach. I think that we'll kind of get a good sense. If they can get to the Sweet 16, maybe they could knock off a Virginia type team. So we'll see. I'm not ready to commit to them as my sleeper Final Four, but I definitely think that they are a solid 3 seed that could make some noise.
Interesting. All right. And on the topic of conference strength, a conference that we've grown to think of big things with, the Big Ten obviously adding Maryland this season. It's a little bit unusual to see Ohio State as a double-digit seed with how much they've been able to make noise in the tournament as a higher seed. We are now joined by Matt Brown of Land Grant Holy Land, who follows and covers this team very closely. Of course, Matt from SB Nation as well. Matt, how are you feeling tonight? You have a premier player in the country, but certainly not a Buckeye program on the level that we're used to.
I feel pretty good. The big fear for Ohio State fans is, one, you're going to get stuck in an 8-9 game with Kentucky looming overhead, and with Kentucky's size, they're going to beat Ohio State by 40. And then the other fear was Ohio State drawing another in-state team with Xavier and Dayton and Cincinnati all kind of hovering around that seed line, and with the Buckeyes losing to Dayton last year and then getting reminded of that for the next several months. That wasn't something that people really wanted to have a second go-around with. So to miss both of those and then face a team that, while they're exceptionally well coached, does not have a ton of size and relies on press, where the ball handling might be Ohio State's strength. Getting a 10 seed is not ideal, but all things considered, things could have been a lot worse.
All right, and your confidence level, of course, having D'Angelo Russell is an enormous chip, but your confidence level specifically going against VCU and how chaotic they can make things and how quickly they can turn over teams and pace games to be out of control. Does Ohio State match up in a favorable way as a 10 seed against VCU in any way?
Well, I mean, you got to be careful using confidence level anytime you're talking about a 10 seed
yes.
or a team that for Ohio State, they basically beaten one good team all year. But with that being said, and you obviously when you're going against VCU, you're going to assume you're going to give up some transition baskets and turn the ball over. But Ohio State has Russell, who's a more than capable ball handler in his own right, opposite with the senior guard Shannon Scott, who's one of the leaders in assists in the Big Ten. And while he may not be a great jump shooter and maybe limited in other ways in his offensive game, is capable of handling the basketball and being able to break that press.
All right.
So if you're going to look at a team that relies on one particular thing versus Ohio State, perhaps their strength, you have to feel okay about that.
All right, and if Ohio State is able to move on against VCU as the lower seed, it appears that they're going to get Arizona.
How do you feel about that?
How thoughts?
Not great. I don't feel great about that, but I don't know if there's really a 1 or a 2 seed in the tournament right now, or look at that and go, wow, Ohio State has a 50-50 chance of being able to upset that team. When you have a guy that can drop 35 and just has the potential to go unconscious from downtown,
right,
you always have a puncher's chance. But man, Arizona's athleticism, their size, their defensive tenacity, coupled with Ohio State not being a great offensive team outside of Russell, they're better matchups.
All right, when you look at Ohio State, where did they get better throughout the season? Obviously a very inconsistent year, not a lot of big wins, but what were the steps that Thad Matta, now a record-setting coach for the Buckeyes, what did he do for Ohio State, and what did the players do to make them a better team, to make them a tournament team when they did have this kind of up-and-down year?
It's what's frustrating, I think, to a lot of Ohio State fans is they would point and say that we're not really sure if this team did get better. I mean, it's not uncommon for Ohio State to start slow in Big Ten play under Matta, and this was
despite starting multiple seniors, practically speaking, was a very young team. You can look at Jashawn Tate, who's Ohio State 6'4", but kind of a low post. Their version of like a Charles Barkley type. He's somebody that made the Big Ten All-Freshman team. He has a bright future, despite being a little bit shorter than you'd like for someone at that position. But a lot of the guys that I think Buckeye fans are hoping to take it the next step, like a Mark Loving or a Sam Thompson that coming into his senior year here, they didn't really make that step. And there's a lot of the role players outside of Russell that were very inconsistent. If Ohio State, everyone's clicking, Ohio State can blow out a team like Maryland by 20 points. But that's happened very rarely this year for the Buckeyes.
All right, Matt, thank you very much for your time. And look, worst case scenario, we all get to watch D'Angelo Russell for a week. That's the absolute worst case scenario, and that's pretty good.
And you're going to win another national football title.
How dare you? How dare you? All right. Matt Brown, Land-Grant Holy Land, does a fantastic job. They do a great job, even as an Oregon person.
I know.
They do a good job there. No, it's okay. It still stings a little
sure
bit. It stings. But no, Ohio State is an interesting situation. You know what? I don't feel like they're going to be a double-digit seed for long. I feel like Thad Matta recruits well enough.
Matt brought up a good point, though. A lot of those guards were highly touted, and a lot of them didn't. I liked what Sam Thompson's done this year. I think he's always been super athletic. He has been more reliable as just an all-around offensive player than in previous seasons. But there are guys that have come through that system in the past few years that didn't develop. And it's not a knock on Matta. I think they could have just been the player.
There are variables,
because they still went to the Final Four, and they've won Big Ten championships and stuff. So it just seems like it was Russell or bust with this team, and that's not good.
Fair enough. So. All right, and a program that, at least for the time being, and you have to feel good about them for the future as well. Stephen F. Austin, another year in the tournament, of course, have a terrific time in the tournament last year. We're joined by Stephen F. Austin, head coach Brad Underwood. Coach Underwood, how are you feeling tonight with another tournament bid?
Oh, I don't know how I could be much better. It's terrific. I don't think you ever get tired as a basketball coach of enjoying the moment of Selection Sunday, and when you know you're in a one-bid league, and you know how hard that is and how much pressure that is, it's a great feeling.
Coach, you were a pretty sought-after team last year as an upset special type team, and you pulled that off. When I look at your statistics and what you've done this year, it seems like you're not even getting as much credit as you should, but you might be just as good or talented a team. Can you compare what last year's team was to this year's team?
Well, this year's team's a lot deeper. We have a lot more depth, and we score the ball easier. We were challenged at times last year scoring the ball. If we didn't have Jacob Parker and Desmond Heyman on the floor last year, at times we could really struggle on the offensive end. This year it comes a little easier. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if we were able to withstand last year guys getting in foul trouble. This year we've been able to play through that a little bit better, and our new guys we're a little more athletic. We're a little quicker. We're still not a real big team. But it's been a process with this team getting the 5 new guys to gel in. But we've got 10 guys averaging double-figure minutes. Last year we didn't have that.
Coach, when you look ahead now at Utah, what do you know about the Utes, and what are you confident in going into the game, and where are your concerns that you are looking to fix or at least address in the next few days?
Well, Larry does an unbelievable job, and the job he has done in terms of literally starting from ground zero, and now has that team in the tournament. Obviously, they've got an outstanding guard in Wright. I know they're extremely big in terms of their starting 5. They're an explosive team. I have not seen a lot of them. I saw them a little bit early in the year, but the big kid inside is a handful, and they're a team that's big. And I know Larry coaches the heck out of them, and they guard, and they're a team that is very, very good on the offensive end in terms of running and getting the shots that he wants them to do. But the right kid is special, and we've got our hands full in transition with him.
All right, and how much does it matter to you who you're playing in that first round? Obviously, you're game planning. Obviously, you're scheming for the team you're playing. But is it a situation where you're more focused on correcting and improving your own squad, or is it a situation of you're really honing in on attacking Utah in a unique way?
Oh, I think it's a little of both. I think every game that we go into and we're with the mindset that we can win that game, and I don't want to be around people that aren't of that mindset, and I sure the heck don't want my players, thinking they're going into the Utah game with the idea of losing.
Right.
I think the one thing that we'll game plan for them, and as the week progresses here, and fine tune some things, and then we'll take some things that we know we have to do better. Based partly on what Utah will try to do to us, and just some simple things we need to make sure we do as a collective group a little better.
Where is that focus with what you need to improve upon?
Well, I think we continue at times to be a little bit of a team that gets a little turnover heavy at times, and at times we're one of the top. We were the number one assist team in the country. We had a great assist to turnover ratio, but it was we've had that game periodically just pop up where we have 17 or 18 turnovers, and a lot of that is mental focus. I don't expect that to be an issue, but we continue to work, fine-tuning our chemistry on the offensive end as well as we do defensively.
All right. Brad Underwood, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to SFA.
Guys, I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks,
Thank
Coach.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. They're a really fun team to watch, and I know SB Nation went down to Texas last season and did a feature on them, and they practice hard. You can see how disciplined they are. The final product is great.
I really like them as the Cinderella, but
really,
I'm just saying
so
but it's a tough.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
It is a tough matchup. So they have Utah, who I don't think anybody's been crazy about this past month.
No, but kind of what he was saying, though, is sometimes they turn the ball over too much.
Right.
And if Utah's playing the defense they were playing in January, that's going to be a big problem.
And they could potentially have Georgetown in the second round.
But they can't be two double-digit seeds.
They can't do it. That's what I'm saying. That's a great thing. All right. On that very important note, we are going to go to something even more important. The bad internet things, region numero 4, with Jan Boyce.
Nick and Dan, thank you once again. We are moving on to the fourth and final region of the Bad Internet Things bracket. This is the East region, which is easily the most difficult region in the entire tournament. Let's start off with the 1 seed, RedskinsFacts.com, versus the 16 seed, YouTube legal disclaimers under uploads of Thriller that say, I did not make this song. That's going to be a close one. The 8th seed, Anything About Star Wars, Anything, versus the 9 seed, Spotify ad interrupts Aquemini. That's going to be a close one. The 5th seed, Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog versus the 12 seed, Google Maps tells you to take the C train, only in New York. That's going to be a close one. 4 seed, G-Chat breakups versus the 13 seed, web-funded documentaries with soundtracks that are just whistling. I don't know how to whistle. That'll be a close one. 11 seed, Hate Following versus the 6 seed, Yankees writing think pieces about the South. Don't do it. That's going to be a close one. 7 seed, Coors Light reviews on Beer Advocate versus the 10 seed, commenter on every dunk video who says, that was a travel. That's going to be a close one. And finally, the 2 seed, women being asked things and then being corrected when they answer, versus the 15 seed, sports writers tweeting from airports. That is going to be a close one. Thank you so much. Nick and Dan, back to you.
Have you heard of a G-Chat breakup?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah.
Really? That's a thing? Have you been
it's
involved in one?
No, but it's not a thing, but it's happened.
Clearly
in my
it's
social
happened.
circle. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't know how involved they were with each other,
Was the person in your social circle or the people in your social circle the breakup-ers or the breakup-ees?
Breakup-ees.
Oh, they've been dumped.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
But again, I think it wasn't like, they weren't living together, they weren't going to get married, but it was just kind of like, let's go get coffee and you can dump me that.
Man, you can see when they're typing too.
And
it's
just,
brutal.
it's like,
is
typing, what's the next thing going to be?
Oh man, that is rough. All right, on a completely different note though.
Yeah.
Roger Sherman. I don't know if you're familiar with
I do
legend.
know Roger.
Roger's the greatest.
Yeah.
Roger Sherman has been covering every single team that's in the tournament and is writing capsules all for SB Nation of everything you should know. But something that we've been talking about players all over the country, but Roger, he dives deep. He was over at St. Francis in Brooklyn.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he was,
nice.
and that's like a gym that holds like 184 people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Roger, specifically, who are you looking forward to watching that could be a little bit below the radar?
So you guys already talked about him earlier, but the one person I'm really excited to see going up against sort of more elite team is Mamadou Ndiaye of UC Irvine. I think that matchup between UC Irvine and Louisville could be a really interesting one. Louisville, I'm not really sure how they're doing offensively since Chris Jones got suspended. They've been shaky at times. And Mamadou Ndiaye is just a fascinating human being to watch because he's larger than human beings should be.
He isn't a human being.
He is.
Like, in about 2 minutes of turning on the Big West, final the other night, he, like, sometimes he'll fall over. Sometimes he'll just
Don't we all though?
Reject a shot, like, without even thinking about it.
Okay, I don't do that.
Yeah, that one's a more difficult one. So he's a game changer, and he wasn't healthy for a lot of the year. And I'm sure NBA people will be watching too because he is 7'6".
It is secretly a really good tournament for team nicknames. We've got the Terriers, we've got the Anteaters, we've got the Jaspers. There's also there's everything. We got a lot of Bulldogs.
What's Coastal Carolina? Like the Chanticleers? It's some
It is
weird
something
bird.
weird.
The Chanticleers.
Chanticleers.
What is your single favorite mascot nickname that is in the tournament, Roger?
Well, I was actually I'm not a exclusively UC Irvine person, but the Anteaters is definitely my go-to because they're the only Anteaters in the country. There are several Terriers, but there's only one Anteaters, and they're just a very silly animal. They have the long snouts and the long tongues, and the mascot is kind of creepy looking though.
I'm glad that we could do a show about a basketball tournament with the phrase "long tongue" just worked into it seamlessly, and it makes total sense. Which opening round game? And I know you've done these capsules on all sorts of teams. I'm not necessarily for an upset, but who do you is just, and this is outside of Irvine and their big man, but who to you are you just excited to watch because of what they do or who they have? Where is the fascination in the first round for you?
I'm curious to see Eastern Washington.
Okay.
Eastern Washington, they're really up-tempo, really fast. They have the leading scorer in the nation in Tyler Harvey, who is a really fascinating story. He was completely unheralded out of high school. He walked on last year at Eastern Washington, and this year he's the leading scorer in the nation. And they're playing Georgetown, and they're not just playing Georgetown anywhere. They're playing Georgetown up in Oregon, which is going to have probably a lot more Eastern Washington fans than Georgetown fans. So they do fun things. There will be a lot of points. They already knocked off Indiana. Obviously, Georgetown is better than Indiana. Obviously, a lot of teams are better than Indiana.
Yes.
But they have shown that they can beat a power conference team and points.
Roger, do you think it's insane that UCLA, Texas, and Indiana neither of them are playing in the first four or are all in the tournament? Do you think that that's crazy?
I did find it surprising that those were three teams. Well, first of all, I didn't think UCLA was going to make it.
I can't believe
that's insane.
Yeah.
It seems strange to me that the selection committee tells you the things that they're looking for, and then picks a team that doesn't fit that.
They're like the NFL. They just have no rules.
Right.
So that caught me off guard. And, yeah, definitely I thought some of the teams that went to Dayton, including Dayton, were much further off the bubble. And that's an unfair situation. It's unfair that Dayton, which is probably too good to be playing there, got seeded too low. And also that a team has to play a road game in the first round of the tournament in another team's arena. It's a bad situation for both of those teams. So I'm not really sure what was going on with that decision-making process.
Roger, thank you very much for your time, and by all means, everybody check out Roger's work on SBNation.com, filling in information, team capsules. It's fantastic. Let's hone in on a couple of players before we check out. We haven't talked about Northern Iowa. Seth Tuttle. has been fantastic all
Yeah.
year long. You take a look at the numbers that he's put up this season. A tremendous talent. What is Northern Iowa's ceiling? Obviously, Sports Illustrated touts them as a team that could possibly, with their gunning, to take down Kentucky. But what is your view of Northern Iowa?
Yeah, so they are very good.
Yep.
They've been in this position before. Seth Tuttle is one of the best players in the country. You can't refute that. He can be in any conference,
Right.
and he would still get his. He can play anywhere on the court. The problem with them is that after Tuttle, they don't have a lot of guys that are consistently scoring on offense. They're a low-scoring team. Tuttle gets 15 a game. I think their next batch of top scorers all get around 6 to 8 points a game.
Wow.
But they are pretty efficient. I mean, they play good basketball all around. I just think it's going to be hard. If you do run into a physical, bigger, longer team that can neutralize Tuttle, now what do you do? You know?
What is
But
plan
if you're
B?
playing a team that he can do what he needs to do, he will get his points,
Right.
you know? So that's good. I just don't know how long that's going to work.
Yeah, that's
You know?
totally fair.
So-
And a player who's in a better situation, as for shooting, as for really not having a need to create his own shot, Kentucky, shooter, Cook. It's a good life when you have that kind of size that draws that much attention
Devin
to
Booker?
play
Is
inside,
that-
outside. Oh, Devin Booker, excuse
Is that
me.
what we're talking about? Yeah.
Yes, Devin Booker.
So
sorry.
yeah, I mean, the Harrisons can shoot, but at the same time, Devin Booker is a spot-up sharp shooter.
Sharpshooter, yes.
You have a lot of guys that can run the break. They're 7 feet tall. They're athletic. But like I said, at some point in this tournament, I would expect Kentucky to be challenged in some degree. They need a basket. They need a three-pointer.
Yes.
I think Booker's that guy.
And he gets
you know?
open looks, yeah.
He does get open looks, and he's gotten better as the season's gone along. But he also doesn't play outside of his game.
Right.
If you look at what he did in November to what he does now, it's the same thing. It's just more shots and more minutes. You know?
Right, and it's one of those things where he can randomly, I think he had 21 points. He just randomly will hit 6 threes.
And
Yeah.
he's just a quiet assassin. You know, I
Right.
think that he's really important for that team that is not, on the whole, a good three-point shooting team.
Right.
And you kind of forget about, well, this Devin Booker guy can kind of save us if we need him, you know?
Sure, this is true. Question, would you like to leave Frank Kaminsky open at the top of the key?
No.
No. And why is it? We talked about him needing to improve his inside
Remember,
game.
he was a guard. He was not a 7-footer in high
No.
school. You know, he is a guard.
It's a very
in
similar
his brain.
situation with Anthony Davis having that spark. Yeah.
So why would you do that? We were watching the Michigan State game here.
Right.
And he hit 2 wide open threes, and it's like it wasn't even really off a screen where his man fell over or it was just, we forgot to guard
That's
Frank.
the offense, and
Yeah,
he'll just
come
take
on,
those.
You know? So, and he has improved his inside game too, so it just makes him even more dangerous.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you, everybody who has watched the show. Thanks to our friends at Intel. Thanks to everybody that called in, all of the coaches, all of the writers. Thanks, of course, Nick Fasulo, Encyclopedia. Do check him out. Follow him on
Still
Twitter.
get to do this. It's fun.
Oh, it's fantastic. I am exhausted, but if you can, read my championship for the people. Read my championship and champion.
Lafayette.
Yep.
Because
My dad went there. Go Leopards.
Oregon because
I went to Oregon. Go Ducks. Who's your champion?
Mine?
No. Who is my champion?
You want me to ask you? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, who is your champion?
No, I want you to. I'm asking you to tell the
it's
people.
Lafayette.
Lafayette Leopards. The show is date stamped.
I wasn't.
I am on the record. Lafayette, the Leopards, Pat League. You heard it here first.
All white guys.
All white guys. But everybody, thank you very much for watching. Do check out Wake Up College Basketball. We're on the air every single morning and day after each of the game days, recapping everything, looking forward. It's going to be fantastic. We're extending the Wake Up series to college basketball. We have all sorts of fun things planned. Thank you to everybody who watched the show. Thank you to John Boyce for bad internet things. We will see you soon.